What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. And guess what, guys? Today we are going to be testing out what I have been implementing in my game engine, mainly the editor. So let's do that. If you are new to my channel, I'm Hero Serrano and I develop game engines just for fun, just as a hobby. And I have been doing this for about 8 years now. So if you want to develop your own game engine, feel free to subscribe to my channel and ask any questions that you may have here in the chat. If I do not know the answer, someone in my Discord server may help you out. So, just feel free to ask. Having said that, if you are a new game engine developer or an experienced game engine developer, I would like to invite you to join my Discord server. We have about 509 members now. We actually crossed the 500 mark during the weekend. So if you want to join us, either if you want to learn or if you want to provide your knowledge to the whole community, feel free to join. All right, guys. So what are we gonna do today? And before I do that, actually, let me make sure that I'm actually streaming this properly. All right, good. Everything looks good. All right, so what we are going to do is we are going to be testing out some of the implementations that I have been working on my game engine for the past 2 weeks, which I actually did a live stream on all of these implementations. So if you want to check them out, feel free to go to my channel, and there will be under the live game engine development playlist. So if you want to check them out, you are more than welcome to do so. So let me share with you first of all what I have been working on, and then what we're going to be doing today. Okay. So to make this easier, I actually recorded a small video that will actually, show you what I have been working on. And just let me make sure that this is working properly, so that way we can go ahead. Just give me 1 second, guys. All right, so I'm gonna play what I have been working on, and it will basically show you, that now you can add players to the game engine through using the editor. You can also rename the entities. You can also specify the class that you want a particular entity to be the type of, right? So now everything seems to be looking good. The editor is getting better and better. There's a lot more work to be done, obviously. But before I move on, I want to actually test the whole game engine with different game scenes, right? So that's what we're going to be doing today. I'm going to be loading different game scenes, different entities into the game engine using the editor, and see if it doesn't crash. And if it does, well, that's good, because I do want to know the bugs that are out there. So that's what we are going to be doing. Hey, Harlex, how are you, dude? Long time that we don't chat. All right. So having said that, before I move on, I do want to answer some questions that I've been getting. And one of them is this one. Should you implement a scripting into your game engine? And that is a really tough question to answer, because there's a pro and a cons to adding a scripting language into your game engine. Right, the benefits are that it's going to make it easier for people who are not, programmers to use your game engine, and also it allows for a faster development time. Right, you don't have to spend time compiling, your changes. Right. You will see the changes instantly if you are using a scripting language, right? So basically, you would develop your game engine using C++, for example, and then the scripting language and the gameplay of the game would be done using a scripting language such as Lua, right? So like the benefit is that, right? It's gonna make it allow non-programmers to use your game engine, and the development time is going to, be shorter, right? Now, the problem that I have come across and that I actually experienced when I was integrating a scripting language into my game engine is were the following, right? Number one, your game engine is going to get ahead performance-wise, right? I did notice that my collision detection system became slower because of the scripting language, right? And that makes total sense, right? Because let's say that you want to move an entity, right? Or there's a collision happening. When you move the character through the scripting language, it has to go be processed by the scripting language, then it has to go and be processed by the bindings that you have implemented between your C++ and your Lua language, and then it will be executed by the C++ code by your game engine, right? So obviously that takes a long time to execute. Number two, guys, and this to me is the big one, is that there are no debuggers essentially for a scripting language, right? And if your game is very simple, you can, that's not a huge problem. However, if your game is complex, then you will have a huge problems in your hands because come on, let's be honest, you do need a debugger, right? And that is something that I noticed when I was integrating the scripting language. There was no way for me to debug what was happening. I had to write a bunch of print statements throughout the code just to get a sense of what was happening. And that was a big one. And the third problem that I experienced was the fact that you no longer have to maintain your game engine code, your C++ code, but you also have to maintain the binding code, right? The binding code between your game engine and the scripting language, right? The bridge, right? So if you implement something in your game engine, you will also have to write a bridge for that so that the users will be able to use it through the scripting language, right? So now the problem involves maintaining the binding and your game engine, and that I figure that if your game engine becomes very complex, that's going to become a lot of work. So to answer your question, should you implement a scripting into your game engine? You may want to think about that carefully. Yes, there are benefits because non-programmers will be able to develop game engines faster using your game engine, but again, they will not have access to a debugger. And your game engine is going to get ahead performance-wise, and that is a huge problem. So, think about that. Right now, I'm answering a question from Turco. He says that if I intend to support Android or Windows, the answer is no. My game engine is only for Apple devices, so I'm gonna keep it, for just for that. The whole game engine essentially uses the Metal API, and I prefer that over OpenGL and over. I have not used Vulkan, but I have heard that it is very convoluted. So for now, and I think I'm just gonna keep it to Apple ecosystem. All right, guys. So I'm gonna say this in Spanish because Turco actually asked me this in Spanish and I want to make sure that he got this. So básicamente lo voy a mantener, nomás voy a soportar para sistemas de Apple, no para Windows or Android. No. All right, cool. All right, guys. So let's do this. Let's get working. So this is going to be actually not real coding. Well, we're going to be testing the code, but we're not going to be actually, we are not going to be coding per se, all right? So let me bring up Blender, and let me see some of the game scenes that we're going to be loading, all right? So let's see, open recent. Let's do this one, FPS game, all right? Now this one, and I knew this was going to happen. All right, let me bring up that one. All right. So the problem with this one, guys, is that, let me just fix this really quick. Basically, it's the texture that is not picking it up. So this should not be a problem. Let me just do this really quick, and we should be. And if this doesn't work, it's not a problem. Because it shouldn't even matter. All right, let me just remove this one because we don't need this. And this should be. Oh, that's weird. Let me pick it up again. You know, it's funny, right? Because every time when I was preparing for this live stream and and everything was working fine, but now that I'm live, it doesn't work. It always happens. All right, let me do this again. Oh, it doesn't like it. All right, never mind. As a matter of fact, we don't actually need this. What's going to happen is that I'm going to load all of these things that you see here, the houses, the buildings, and the characters that you see here, right? And I'm going to load this up through the engine. We no longer need a Blender as my scene editor. Now I'm just using Blender to create the models that you see, but not to use it as a scene editor. And that was the whole point of why I wanted to use this. All right, so having said that, the first thing that I'm going to need to do is I need to use my data importer. Basically, this data importer is going to convert everything that is in the Blender scene into binary. All right, so basically I take all of the geometric data from those models, the buildings that you saw, the characters that you ended up seeing. All of that data is converted into binary format, and then the engine will read that binary format and recreate the whole model, right? Now, why do you want to export all of your files from Blender into binary and not into XML or JSON? Is because parsing a binary file is a lot faster than parsing an XML or a JSON file. So I recommend this to anyone, right? If you want to parse a file really fast, make sure to convert that to binary format. The time that it takes is a lot faster. So I actually did a video about this a while back, and it shows in one of my scenes I was thinking about I kid you not, like a minute, and once I put it to binary format, it only took like 16 seconds. So you may want to do that. All right, so we are going to convert everything that is in my game scene into binary, right? So convert that to binary. That's exactly what we're doing right now. And then we also want to convert all of my images into binary. And then this, if I'm not mistaken, should be game textures. All right. All right. This should only take a few seconds. Game textures, and that is it. So now I'm also converting the textures into binary. So that way the game engine doesn't spend time doing the whole conversion, right? All right, so now that we have this, let me minimize this. We can move this on the side. All right, so now my game scenes and my game textures data are found here, as you can see. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to run this, right? And what I should see is an empty scene right now. And there you go. All right. So now, when the game engine was loading, the game engine read all of those binary files, the resources, right? The models, the textures, animations, particle systems, everything, right? So if you go to the asset pane here, you're gonna see all of the entities basically. So what I did is, implemented in the editor is that I can select the entities and I can select the type, the class type. In this case, it's going to be E4D model. That's the default model, and I can load this. And now you can see how the ground was loaded, right? So now now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to load up the houses as well. So I'm going to load house 0, boom. And so that you can see there. Now, as I'm loading this, you can see that, the scene graph is being populated, right? Basically, the scene graph is the data structure that holds all of the entities in the scene, which are then passed or given to the game engine, so it can be rendered, and that the physics system can take over it, or the collision system, right? That's the whole point of the data structure. That's the whole point of the scene graph data structure. Now let me add another house here, and something cool that I'm going to show you is that house there. Let me have this one. Okay, now something cool that I did is that, you can also rename your models, right? So let's say I want to rename house 2.0. Let's say I want to rename it, I don't know, a small house. You can rename it and it will show up there as a small house now, right? Now I can also load up the enemies. That would be the characters, right? You can load it there, and the enemy is actually all the way over here. Boom, right there, right? Like I mentioned, you can also select the, like the type of the object, right? Of basically how you want to instantiate the particular entity. So this is my model right here. Obviously, you can move the model, right? You can move it to wherever you want, right? One thing that I don't like about ImGUI is that I don't think there is a precision here for the movement. That's something that I would like to look at. Boom. All right. Boom. All right. And I can also load up the pistol for the character, and I don't even know if that was loaded. Oh yeah, something else that I actually added, right? So let's say I want to keep adding house 4.0 because I like it, right? Right. Let's say I select house 4, and you see how you have house 4.0, 4.1. If I keep adding this, it's gonna go and do house 4.2, right? 4.2. So that way it's a nice, convenient way for you to just keep adding models into all this, right? So that is that. So now what I want to do, I want to test the whole saving stuff. So I'm going to save this, and I'm basically going to put into my download folder, scene file. That should save, right? And if it doesn't, then we have a problem. Well, according to the game engine, everything was saved. So now I want to reset everything because I want everything to be wiped out of the scene. Now, ideally, I should be able to load all of these files, the whole scene, right, that I added. So I can load it up, and we should see everything. Now, one thing that I noticed here is that I do not save the position of my camera nor my lighting. So I should actually write a GitHub issue for that. And let me bring it up. Because that's something that I should be doing. All right. All right. Now, if you are not using a version control for your game engine, I really recommend you to use Git. Git is a version control. And GitHub is basically where you actually can store all of your code, right? So I use Git, through the terminal as my version control. It's very simple to use. Most of the times you are going to be using basically the following commands: add, commit, push, and pull. and merge. That's about it. 95% of the time. It's very simple to use. At first, if you have never used Git, it may feel like kind of weird, but don't be scared of it because once you get a hang of it, it's very, very simple to use. But more importantly, it is very, very, very helpful as a developer. So I strongly recommend you to do that. So let me make a new issue here so that I can, fix. Um, Save camera and lighting properties using the editor. Okay, so my label is enhancement, and every issue that I'm doing live, what I'm doing is I'm just taking it, with the live stream tag, and this is gonna be for my beta 0.16. So that way it is saved here. So that way, whenever I'm looking for issues to fix, I have everything here. Cool. All right. So that looks all right. So now let's go back and actually load up another scene. All right. Let me bring this on over here. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to select a different scene. Instead of that one, what I'm going to do is let's select this one, Mars. All right, and Mars should be that one. Okay, boom. And game scene. And this is an application that I wrote also. It's a simple digit to ASCII converter that will get, again, the data from Blender into binary. I was doing this all through the terminal, but I figured that people may not like to use the terminal. So what I did is I wrote a simple GUI for all this, and it has become useful. But my intent is actually to port this and make it part of the actual editor, so that you don't have to have an external application when you're running the game engine. All right, so unless it should be loaded, and this should be okay now. All right, actually. All right, and now let me run this again and let's see how that one goes. All right. And after this, I'm going to answer another frequent question that I get regarding OpenGL, which you may find that useful. So now if I go to the asset pane, again, right, I'm now loading a different scene that I have. And this thing represents a game that I was doing called Mars. It's basically, Mars with a bunch of rocks and an astronaut. So I'm going to load up the ground. Boom, that's the ground right there. I'm going to load up my astronaut. Boom, it's right there. So everything seems to be working. And let me back up from it. Boom, there you go. All right. Now I can also load up my lunar module, which is that, my spacecraft, which according to the game it crashed. All right, so we have that. Boom. Now the other things that I also have are a bunch of rocks, right? And I do not know where they are placed, but I'm just going to load all of them up just for the heck of it. Load them up. Load them up. All right. So now as I back away, you can see the rocks and all of the stuff. And I have a bunch of rocks here. Oh, and I also have an alien. So let me load that guy up. Oh, there you go. All right, so I actually have a tree as well. And stones. Boom. All right, so the whole point that, why I'm doing this is because I want the game developer to be able to edit the whole scene through the game engine and not be relying on Blender for that, right? Number one is because if you do your whole scene editing in Blender, you will have to export all of those models, right? And that file may get really huge, right? So instead of you having to do that, or what you do is like in Blender, you create your models and you just export the models that you're going to use, and then in the game engine, you should be able to basically move the entities to wherever you want them to be at in your scene, right? That will, number one, reduce the file size that you need, because you don't have to rely on on Blender on where you actually position your models. You can just position them here without any problems, right? Let's say I want to move my astronaut. You can move it here, whatever you want. And then where's my alien? There you go. My alien is here. You can rotate them. And that's the other cool thing, right? Now, most of the properties that you for the entities, you can actually rotate them. Oh, this is another problem that I found in GUI, and I do not know why this is happening. But there seems to be a limit to how much I can rotate a character through the editor. You can see how it starts to, rotate rapidly. So actually that is another issue that I should create. There is a rotation limit in the editor. Rotation option. This affects all entities. All right. Now this is a bug, and I'm gonna fix this live stream. Hopefully next time that I go live. All right. So let me just save this, and then what I'm gonna do now, guys, is I'm going to answer a question that I tend to get. Now, obviously, we can save this again. Let's just make sure that it works, because that's what I want to double check that everything is working. And there you go. Again, you see how my camera properties are not being saved, but that is okay. I can easily fix that. All right, so let me actually answer another question that I tend to get a lot. And believe me, I've been there, and that's why I think I can help you with this answer. It's basically what makes OpenGL complicated to learn, especially for beginners. And I remember when I started learning OpenGL, and I remember this clearly because I spent a Saturday and Sunday at a Starbucks trying to understand OpenGL and trying to render my first cube. Was either a cube or a sphere, but no, it was a cube. And at by Sunday evening, I was able to render the cube, but I felt overwhelmed with everything that I had to do to just render a cube. And keep this in mind, right? That I had already made the decision to develop a game engine without even knowing OpenGL. All right. So this is what I learned, or this is why I think OpenGL is complicated to understand. Number one is that for you to render an entity on your screen, you need to make sure that different components all work properly and they all sync properly for you to see something. If one of your components is not working or it's not in sync with the other two, you are not going to see anything at all. So there are several moving pieces that you need to understand how they work before you get to see something. being rendered, right? And what are those components? Well, number one is that you need to understand linear algebra, right? You need to know what vectors are, what matrices are, and most importantly, you need to understand transformations, right? You need to understand what it means to go from from object space to world space, and then from world to camera space, and then from camera to projection space, right? You need to understand what's happening with every transformation, right? That's number one, and that takes a while to grasp. Number two is that you need to understand that OpenGL is only a medium, all right? It's not a language. It's only a medium. It's an API that takes data from the CPU to the GPU, right? And you need to understand which API to call and what data to send to the GPU in order for you to see something, right? You need to understand what are, uniforms, right? And attributes, right? What are they? How do you load up that data into your shaders, right? You need to also, aside from that, you need to understand how to compile and link a shader, right? If you do not know how to do that, nothing is going to work. Even if you understand linear algebra, if you do not know what data to send or how to link and program your shaders, you're done. Nothing is going to work. And thirdly, is that once you have your linear algebra all set and ready to go, your transformations, and you have your shaders programmed and compiled, right? And you know what data to send, you need to understand that how to program a shader, right? Like you need to learn the shading programming language. You need to know this abstract, different way of programming that you may have never seen before, right? Programming shaders is not like programming in C++, in C++. It's a completely different beast, right? And for someone who's completely new to computer graphics, this is overwhelming, right? It's overwhelming because there's no way that you can understand linear algebra, OpenGL API, and shaders in one weekend. It takes a long time. It takes a lot of practice for you to grasp how everything works, right? And all of these moving pieces and the complexity of all of these moving pieces is what makes OpenGL really hard to understand, right? Especially for beginners, right? So something that I recommend people is to, instead of focusing on learning the OpenGL API, which many people do, right? And it's not their fault, right? Is I recommend people to study computer graphics theory first, right? Understand the rendering pipeline. If you have a good idea of how the rendering pipeline works, you will have a really good idea of how to set up your OpenGL API, how to set up your transformations. Understand, what's the whole point of a vertex shader? What's the whole point of a fragment shader, right? What do they do, right? The vertex shader deals with the geometry of your entities, of your models, whereas the fragment shader deals with, basically applying the color to every pixel of your entity, right? If you understand that and how to do it, then you would be, you are in good shape. But again, I remember that weekend, and I remember that Sunday evening going back home, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is too complicated, too complex. So it took me a long time to actually, get a handle of computer graphics, OpenGL. And the only thing that helped me was to literally just practice, right? Do a lot of projects, simple projects, right? I started out with, just rendering a simple model and then applying textures to that, then applying lighting, right? And then playing around with the whole different lighting algorithms that are there. It took me a long time to actually go through all this, and believe me, it was painful, but I'm glad that I went through that because I did, I did learn a lot. So that's why, OpenGL is very complicated. All right, now the other thing that I wanted to do, why don't we do one more scene and then I'm going to answer another question. Again, because today what I wanted to do was basically to test out all of the implementations that I've been working on, and just make sure that there are no bugs in the game engine before I move on to that next phase of the game engine. And what I think I'm going to do later on is actually I'm going to develop a simple game, a soccer game, right? And when I say simple, I'm just using a soccer game is not simple to make, but I want to keep it simple. And the idea is that I'm very big in the user experience, right? When I write the API, I like to somehow understand how will the game developer use the API. Is it simple to understand? Is it logical? Does it make sense? Am I making the game developer go through jump through different hoops in order to use my game engine? So what I want to do is I want to develop a simple game and see, where the user experience fails, right? Where is it cool to use my game engine or not? So let me run one more scene and then I'm going to answer another question that actually I got through a comment. So let me see. Well, we already have the soccer. Let me load up this one, the Desert City. Okay, game convert to binary. And let me do this one. This one has a lot of models actually. And you can tell because it's taking a long time. All right, so let me move it over here. And let me run this. And if you have any questions related to game engine development, feel free to ask me. I may be able to provide an answer. And if I can't, the members in my Discord server will be more than happy, to help you out. Believe me, there are members in our Discord that know a lot more about game engine development than I do. I actually have learned a lot from them, a lot. So I'm very happy that we have this community because one of the problems that I faced as I was developing my game engine was that, I was developing my whole game engine in isolation, right? I was not reaching out to people, to other indie game engine developers and asking for help and for their advice and tips. I basically was, just trying to reinvent the wheel on my own, and that was not a good idea. Harlex is asking, you were developing a cool FPS game. Yes, I was, but I basically stopped developing the FPS game mainly because, and I'm going to be honest, and I've said this to many people, I do not know how to make a game entertaining and fun to play. I really lack that talent that some game designers have. So I'm sticking to only developing game development tools. But I do develop games, right, just so I can test out the game engine. But I don't think I go beyond the first level because, again, I just don't know how to make them entertaining and fun and engaging. I just don't have it, So let me load up these models now. Wow, there's so many. House to boom terrain. I don't know what that is. Okay, that is that. House 1. Where is that one? Oh, okay, terrain. I loaded up terrain again. Oh, another thing that I added was that now you can remove entities also. So house, that's house. House 5. house 0, stone. Oh wow, look, my FPS did drop for this one. That's weird. Huh. Would I wonder if there is a particular model that is quite heavy. A bag. Oh, look at that. A well. Where is that one? Oh no. Okay. Let me remove this one. And let me do this. Well, here. And that is that. Tile. Alright, house 3. Okay, I do not like that my FPS is dropping. And I wonder why is that. It may be OBS, because OBS slows down my computer quite a lot, so that may be the issue. And let me do this one. Fans, boom. But as you can see, right, you can now select a lot, different entities, and you can all of the sudden, right? Not all of the sudden, but now you can actually, set up your whole game scene through, using the editor. Now, what I want to add is actually a gizmo, and I do not know if that's proper name, but basically the little arrows that that whenever you click on the entity, you can actually have, you can move it around and rotate them. By selecting them, and now by going here, I'm going to add that. I think that's going to make it a lot easier for people to use the game engine. But yeah, so let's see, what else do I have? Stone barrels, gold, chest gold, boom. Oh, this one, let's see this one. That's the market 2. Okay, cool. All right, so this seems to be working, guys. I'm a little bit concerned about the FPS though. I don't like that. That's really bad. Insanely bad. I don't recall the FPS the FPS dropping for the other game, scenes that I loaded. All right, cool. So now that we have this, I think we are good, and everything seems to be working fine. I can obviously reset this, get it out of the way, and we should be cool. Actually, you know what? I can also load up my previous game scene, right? Let's see. Look at that. Huh. That may be a problem. I need to look into that now. Look. That's weird. Okay, I need to look into that whole saving. Hey, Global Coders, how are you, dude? How's it going, dude? We've been actually basically going through the implementations that I've been working on for the past 2 weeks. I'm adding the InVue editor to my game engine and see all of the features that I've added, are working fine. For the most part, it seems that everything is working. You can load the entities, you can rename them, you can remove the entities, you can save them. But now here in my for some reason the loading of the scene did not work, and I do not know why. I wonder if by mistake I corrupted my file, but who knows? I will have to double check that again. But let me do this really quick again, because that's weird. I don't know. I have to look into that. But no. All right, so let me go here. Hey, Anoop. Okay, so that's okay. That's your YouTube name, huh? Okay, yes. How are you, Anoop? How's it going, dude? All right, so Harlex is asking, I like to write my own model loader instead of using Async. Can you give me any resources for this? Glad you ask. All right, so if you go to my website, let me go here. And let me just double check that I'm actually sharing this. All right, so if you go to my website, jeroserrano.com, and you scroll all the way down, I actually wrote a project that may help you, and I'm going to provide a link here, right? If you go to Digital Asset Importer, right? This is a simple project that I wrote that will help you basically export all of the models that are in Blender into your game engine. So basically for this little castle here, right, I use the Blender Python API to read all of the properties such as the geometry, the textures, the the normal vectors, etc. And here, basically this. And what happens is that once you run the script, you are going to have access to all of that data in numeric form, right? So basically, if I scroll all the way down, let me just, here it is, right? So once you run the script, you will have access to all of the vertices for this particular model, which is the castle, right? Same thing for your normal vectors, right? You get all of that data, and here's the vertices, right? You have the normal data that is shown here. Basically, you can end up writing your own, loader, right? Without having to rely on a Sim or Collada or whatever. You can also read the animations data using this, right? So basically, I share with you the whole script, how to do it, how to read from Blender all of the data that you want. It's free for you to use, to check out. Feel free, and if you have any questions, let me know, because I can also share with you the actual code that I use for my loader, right? Let's see, if you go, give me 1 second. Let's see if this loads so I can actually find that repo for you. Yep. All right. So this is the digital asset exporter. This is basically the script that I load into Blender. And this script will, again, read out the geometry of the entities, normal maps, normal vectors, animations, armatures, everything that you need. And this is basically what I do as my own model loader. Now, why did I opted to write my own instead of using Collada? Well, basically, you're gonna find out that when you use Collada, when you are parsing that data from Collada, especially the animations, it's gonna get very, very, very nasty, like really quick, right? So initially I started using Collada, but then I could not. I was getting headaches just to understand the whole convolution of data, that was going on. I mean, it's all convoluted, a lot, and it's so hard to understand what is connected with what. So one day I finally decided, what, forget this. I'm gonna write my own model loader. So, and I guess, you know what? It's not hard to do. It's not hard at all. It's super simple to do, actually. Once you understand what to do, it's like a piece of cake. So, I'm gonna provide that link so that you can use it, Alex. So, feel free, to use it. And if you have any questions, ask me. Post your questions in Discord, and I'll help you out. Anub is asking if I should start, that it would be cool if I start a series on OpenGL development in C++. So I haven't been using OpenGL for a long time. I use Metal API, which is the Apple Graphics API. Well, what I recommend people to do whenever they are learning OpenGL is to focus on learning computer graphics theory first, right? Understand that rendering pipeline, what are vertex shader, fragment shader. Because if you know the theory behind computer graphics, you can literally use any API out there, OpenGL, Vulkan, Metal API, whatever, and you'll be able to pick it up, right? Again, OpenGL is only a medium. It's only an API that will take data from the CPU to the GPU. That is it, right? And knowing OpenGL does not mean that you know computer graphics. It does not mean that, right? You need to understand computer graphics in order to understand OpenGL. And again, once you know the theory, believe me, you can pick up any API whatsoever, and you'll be able to develop your game engine. So no, it only will load one format, right? And you can specify the format that you want, right? Basically, my format is the .u4d. That's the format for my game engine. But basically, I think what you are asking is that in Blender, yeah. So in Blender, right, you can load up basically any type of models, right? For example, you can import. You can say import for FPS from DAE or Wavefront, right? Now, once you have it here, for example, this scene right here, all of this is from the DAE. The artist, he actually did all of this using DAE, if I'm not mistaken, Collada, right? But now once I have it in Blender, right now, if I run my script, which I'm gonna run it right now, so you can see it, run. So let me just unlink this. I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna run the script. Now what's gonna happen is that when I go to default, I wrote this little pane here. You see Untold Engine. So you can say export, and it's going to export the scene, the models in the scene, to your particular format. In this instance, I'm loading it to XML, right? But later on, I convert that from XML to binary. But all of that data that you see here will be exported to XML. So that's basically how it works. Actually, let me do it so you can actually see it. Let me put this here, socket scene, export it, boom. Now, if I open up that one, cancel it, and I'm gonna drag what I just exported. Now, you see here, now all of that data that I exported from my Blender, which came from Collada, and it can be from FBX or OBJ, whatever. Now, all of that data is shown here in XML. Boom, right? And it's ready to go. So here's the field goal, right? Which refers to this guy right here, right? So that's the data for that. Now what I do, right, because you do not want to parse XML data into your game engine. It's going to take a long time to parse all of this. What you do and what I do is I convert all of this into a binary file. And once it is in binary, right, then I give it to the game engine. And the game engine will read the binary file and recreate the whole model back into the game scene, basically. But basically, this is how you do it. Again, it is very simple to do. It won't take you that long to figure it out. So, again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me, and I'll be more than happy to help you out. Anoop is asking, any good resources for computer graphics? Yes. Let me go back to my Let me go back to my website here, because I will. So, um, hold on. OBS is slowing down my computer, so let me minimize this really quick. All right. So if you go to books, um, a book that I strongly recommend you to read, if you want to have a good idea on the theory of computer graphics, is this one, Graphic Shaders, Theory and Practice. It is a really good book that I recommend you to read. It helped me a lot. You do not have to read all of the chapters in the book. If you read up to chapter, I think like the first 5 chapters or 6, you will be in really good shape to pick up OpenGL. As a matter of fact, they do talk about OpenGL and the API. So they try to link the theory with OpenGL. I strongly recommend this book. Again, you don't have to read the whole book, but it will help you tremendously if you read the first 5 chapters or so. I'm going to provide a link here. And once you have read this book, then you can go ahead and read OpenGL Super Bible, right? That's the very popular OpenGL book that everybody reads, right? And knows about. The problem with the OpenGL Super Bible book is that it doesn't really go into the theory of computer graphics. It starts talking about the API, and if you do not know what a pipeline is, you're gonna be lost, just like I was, right? So yeah, but feel free to read all this. Now I also have a lot of articles that I've written. For example, if you go here, actually, this one, I give an introduction to computer graphics. And I talk about what is a mesh. I talk about the rendering pipeline. I talk about the different stages of the pipeline. I talk about shaders. I talk about transformations. I give a introduction to all of these concepts, so you know what they are. I talk about attributes, uniforms, how they work. I talk about the frame buffer, right? So that way you have a really good idea of what to do. Again, let me share this with you. Which which book are you talking about, Anup? The book that I talk about here, the 3D Math Primer, this one? I wouldn't consider it heavy in math, to be honest with you, because linear algebra is not really that hard to grasp. Why I recommend this book is that this book will literally provide you with all of the code snippets that you are going to need to develop your own mathematics engine. I mean, it will literally give you the whole classes and the methods and the functions and the snippets that you need to implement your vector class, your matrices classes, etc. So that's why I really love this book. It is a really good book. I don't know how much it's going for. It may sound expensive, but it's gonna save you a lot of time. So All right, guys. I think that's all that I wanted to work on for today. Thank you guys so much, for joining my live stream. I hope that this was helpful to you. And if you like this live stream, please click that like button. That will really help out my channel. And if you haven't subscribed, if you haven't subscribed, please do so. I'm right now close to hitting 1,000 subscribers, so that's kind of a cool milestone. So I would really appreciate it. Oh, okay. So Harlex is just mentioned that you are talking about the OpenGL book. The OpenGL book is not math heavy at all. They don't, not at all. it is kind of confusing if you do not know what a uniform is or an attribute, or what is a vertex shader, right? It will be confusing, and that is my opinion, right? um, so but no, it's not heavy at all. All right, guys. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you guys showing up. It makes the whole live streaming experience fun, a lot more enjoyable than just talking by myself, right? So thank you guys so much, and I'll see you next time. I'm gonna try to go live again on Wednesday, around 10 p.m., 11 p.m., depending what time I'm free. Thank you, and I'll see you guys next time.